Okay, so what spicy audio are we starting with today? How about Attorney General Pam Bondi from a few months ago?
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, you wouldn't though. Okay, hello and welcome to State of Play on Mint Press News. I'm your host, Greg Stoker, and that was Attorney General Pam Bondi 5 months ago saying they got the Epstein files and she was reviewing them. We're calling this episode The Big Beautiful Cover-Up, Epstein, ICE, and the MAGA War State. I'm sorry if I'm kind of discombobulated right now. It's like, speaking of government agencies and funding cuts, this is very thematic. I was trying to reach my primary care provider at the VA and start and schedule an appointment. Spent 2.5 hours on the phone just now. An hour and a half on the phone. Transferred 7 times. Transferred from Temple VA back to the Temple VA when I was trying to get to the Austin VA to schedule an appointment. And then I was just like, you know what? I have a theory. They're just trying to get us all to kill ourselves so they don't actually have to cut funding to veterans benefits if there's no veterans left. Thanks, Texas VA. Go F yourself. Anyways, where were we? As we're all filtering in real quick, Mint Press News is on Patreon. So, like, if you're picking up what we're putting down and you're trying to, like, support us or whatever, that's great. You know what? We're just glad you're here. So if you want to like, share, subscribe, engage with the stuff, it pushes it further out into the algorithm. So yeah, we're going to be talking about some stuff today on the home front, and we're going to be talking about Gaza and the Iran situation. I wanted to get into the BRICS summit today, but there's just not enough time, and we don't have enough bandwidth for that at the moment. So yes, we are talking about the Epstein list, and we're putting it to bed because it was a psyop. And we're going to talk about that. And now they're going to have to move on to something different. Probably Iran, sleeper cells, and MS-13, and radical leftist socialists that need to go into the camps. So just so you know, since we started with Attorney General Pam Bondi, the Judiciary Act of 1789 created the Office of the Attorney General, which evolved over the years into the head of the Department of Justice and Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the federal government. So the Department of Justice has just reviewed the matter and found that nobody has done anything wrong. Of course, you know, the Justice Department contains most of the United States federal law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, the U.S. Marshals Service, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, and the Drug Enforcement Administration. Oh, yeah. And something that's way, way outspent and way bigger than this government organization, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, is the private incorporation of the prison system as well. So, yeah, even if cash... Oh, and now that everyone's still filtering in and we're just talking about the Federal Bureau of Prisons, in 2003 or 2005, excuse me, only about 25% of ICE detainees were in private prisons. In 2016 or 2014, under the Obama administration, it went up. In 2018, it was like 80%. And then in 2023, under Biden, it was 90% of all ICE detainees are in private prisons. And we're going to talk about how, you know, over the next 10 years that because there's less crime in America and less long-term sentences, that a lot of these prison populations would decrease by sometimes up to like 50%. And that's not good. The prison system is a for-profit industry, so we need more bodies in prison. All right. So yeah. Anyways, more on that later. Even if Kash Patel, the Trump loyalist director of the FBI, wanted to release whatever is in the Epstein files, he'd have to end run former Qatar lobbyist AG Pam Bondi to do so. of course, no one is going to break ranks at this point. Then this all comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu conducts Gaza ceasefire talks with President Trump as of the time of this recording, something his right-wing ministers do not want. And putting that aside for a moment, do you remember when the DOJ released the first pages of the Epstein files to a bunch of MAGA loyalists, TikTok influencers, and Twitter influencers in that absurd PR photo op? There was like libs of TikTok, one of those people, one of those guys, and he has like millions of followers. But yeah, just a news flash. Where did this propaganda go?
Justice Department has yet to release the documents to the general public, leaving many to question what exactly was in the binders. Among those seen holding the binders were prominent right-wing figures, including Rogan O'Handley, Mike Cernovich, Jack Posobiec, and Kaya Rakik, also known as libs of TikTok.
What you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information, but it's pretty sick what that man did.
The decision to grant certain influencers access before the public has sparked backlash across the political spectrum. Republican Representative Anna Paulina Luna, a leading voice in pushing for the release of the files, expressed frustration over the process. The public reaction to the influencers receiving the files was also mixed on social media. Both right and left-wing activists were outraged by the selective release. Epstein's crimes and connections to high-profile pictures have remained a topic of intense public interest for years. His relationships with royals, presidents, and billionaires have fueled speculation about the extent of his network and potential cover-ups. Despite the DOJ's promises of transparency, the handling of these latest document releases has fueled even more skepticism.
Well, what happened to that whole stunt? I mean, and look, an Axios article published yesterday highlights the main points of this ongoing contention. So the intrigue here, and also to jog your memory, is when Elon Musk had a falling out with Trump last month. Musk accused the president of being, quote, in the Epstein files, right? And now that we're talking about Trump, let's get some Trump B-roll going just for visual interest. Not that you guys want, that you guys want to look at him, but we gotta play something, right? So Trump posted on social media a statement from the former Epstein lawyer David Schoen saying that Trump wasn't implicated in any crime. Schoen had also represented Trump in his first impeachment trial. Musk later deleted his accusation on other posts on X, saying he, quote, went too far. Maybe it has something to do with his tanking stock prices. But anyways, still, the questions about whether Trump name is in the government's Epstein files has persisted because they had been acquaintances who attended the same parties in the 1990s, and there's footage with them, there's pictures. In 2017, in an interview with Michael Wolff, Epstein even claimed that at one point he was Trump's closest friend. Trump, however, said in 2019 that he was not a fan of Epstein and hadn't spoken to him for 15 years. Of course, we're still waiting on the fact checks on that to come through. He also said he had barred Epstein from his golf resorts in the early 2000s. Democrats, meanwhile, have demanded to know more about the Epstein-Trump relationship. So, naturally, what's next? The DOJ and FBI say in the memo that no further disclosure of Epstein-related material would be appropriate or warranted. That was the quote from the memo they released. No further information would be appropriate or warranted. Got to ask the question why. We know the question why. The memo says much of the material relates to child sexual abuse, details of Epstein's victims, and information that would expose innocent individuals to allegations of wrongdoing. Okay, so to break this down, we've got they can't release the files because it relates to child sex abuse. The details of the victims, which you don't necessarily have to reveal unless, well, and information that would expose innocent individuals to allegations of wrongdoing. So if you're in the Epstein files and you're innocent, you're one of the trafficked. And now, so they're coming from this position where, we don't want to expose the innocent people to harm, not the people from the circles that Epstein ran with who were most likely implicated here. So obviously a certain class of people that was mentioned in the video explainer earlier, celebrities, politicians, royalty, etc., all part of the transnational neoliberal elite. So through this review, we found no basis to revisit the disclosure of those materials and will not permit the release of child pornography, the memo says. So you don't release the freaking pictures or the videos. This entire thing is absurd. In the end, here's the main crux of the thing. In the end, whether or not Trump is in the Epstein files, the performative effect is the same. Whether or not they even exist at all as a Mossad operation to entrap U.S. officials, and they never intended on releasing them in the first place, right? The performative effect is the same. The Epstein files were never about justice and definitely not about transparency. They were a lure for the drain the swamp conservatives, and intentionally crafted psyop born out of multiple movements, including QAnon, to radicalize a dissolution, overly online generation, nudging them toward MAGA as the only faction to fight the child trafficking elite. And it worked. Because now Trump's own DOJ quietly admits no Epstein client list, no blackmail operation, no murder, just suicide, case closed. So what's all the outrage for? To get folks to vote Republican. That's what this was. And to feel like they were fighting the system composed of ancient CIA crypt keepers and FBI officers, career bureaucrats, and pedophilic establishment Democrats, i.e. the deep state, while doing it. And it was an information operation that mobilized and weaponized disgust, redirected rage, and marketed rebellion with an electoral purpose. They thought that they were exposing the deep state. Instead, they helped perpetuate it, right? Really, the deep state is just end-stage capitalism, which is collapsing. But, we'll put theory aside for a bit and just talk about the performative effects. So, what were they? What you are seeing throughout our governmental establishment can be analyzed as a corporate pillaging, getting in while the getting's good and keeping it going as long as possible. Now that the Epstein narrative has served its purpose, they'll find something else, likely what? We're already seeing it, right? Like Iranian sleeper cell terrorists to conflate with criminal migrants to justify turning ICE into the third largest military in the world, all while using taxpayer dollars to make private prison contractors and defense contractors like Palantir and its shadowy co-founder Peter Thiel monstrously rich, or more monstrously rich, and increasingly powerful. And to continue this analogy, this is all about maximizing shareholder returns each financial quarter, come hell or high water, but as an entire government and a society, with only plans for the near future and the next financial quarter. For instance, with the big, beautiful bill, the tax cuts for the ultra rich will take effect before budget cuts to Medicaid start impacting Americans. Oh, sorry, let me back up. The tax cuts for the ultra rich, capital gains tax, etc., will take effect before budget cuts to Medicaid, which will start impacting American voters after the 2026 midterms. Then what? After they start seeing the Medicaid cuts, then what? What other psyop can be put in place to redirect the rage of voting Americans into an object other than the oligarchs and corporate interests? Well, there might not be one as effective in the future, because just look at the whole Epstein list. It was tied into the core of one of the biggest social and cultural issues of the MAGA movement, which was to protect children. That's what this is all about. The sex trafficking, the pedophile rings that the QAnon people were talking about, in Hollywood, with the Democratic establishment, who are basically intertwined in Hollywood, protect children, anti-abortion laws, pro-life legislation, women's bodily autonomy, can't do it. Need to protect children, drag queens, gay drag men who dress in drag, reading to children, protecting children from lasciviousness, cracking down on trans legislation. Can't have a bunch of kids having their genitalia mutilated. and then the Epstein file, bringing it back, the core of their entire platform for repealing all these rights of marginalized groups. I mean, not the Hollywood glitterati and the Democrats, but like women, trans folks, LGBTQ plus, migrants, but that's another thing. But all of that stuff surrounding sexuality was to engender norms, was to protect children, right? That was the core nucleus of their social campaign. That and immigration, and to stop wars. Of course, none of this has happened, but it's interesting to see that. So, we're going back to it. Yeah, they're basically just trying to push these social issues as far as they can go to redirect rage against the ruling class. But there might not be and so their whole core is falling apart. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what this does to the MAGA movement. I don't think it's really going to affect them too much, but a lot of people on the right who are with Trump just because they think he was going to get this done. An important point to make is after this, like, who's going to still believe the Trump administration? And again, after the Epstein files thing has played out, now it's done. There might not be one as effective in the future, and thus the techno-feudal Palantir national database with its associated predictive policing algorithms, the Oracle Health Immunization Management Cloud Service, and the absurd new ICE budget in case they can't find another cause to derail people and divide people. Now, do I think this oligarchic pillaging and disintegration of our government will turn out that how they expect it to? I doubt it. We're in uncharted territory. If you widen the lens to the geopolitical, it's all part of the destabilize, play for time, exploit chaos mindset inherent to capitalist interventionist diplomacy, which isn't working out the way our ruling elite necessarily want it to. So take Iran, for instance, and the diplomatic games going on over there. And please, they want to restart the nuclear talks as we continue to try and assassinate the president and the supreme leader in order to implement regime change or collapse operations. Play for time with the next round of Gaza ceasefire talks in order to give political cover to Israel and the joint project to turn the enclave into the Trump Riviera. And if we keep stringing this out, maybe an opportunity to deal with probably less than 2 million Palestinians will present itself. And the bottom line is they aren't in as much control as they like to appear. And this past weekend with the Texas floods and the PR front ain't looking too great. Here's Kash Patel before he went into the administration. He's the current director of the FBI.
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking. There were so many individuals that were hidden, kept secret, and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. And I really believe that now with Kash and Pam, there will be accountability.
It wasn't Kash Patel all about the FBI and so corrupt? Well, now you are leading the FBI. Yeah, so what now? Why do you...
All right, so this, so why now? I like John Kiriakou, who's a CIA whistleblower and friend of the show. He's been on before, giving his 2 cents. This is from a clip from Unified TV. It's more kind of like a right, anti-authoritarian right space, which is kind of interesting to listen to.
I think these two come out and 2 little guilty kids.
I remember speaking to a friend of mine who was convinced that he was murdered. And I said, look at this one step at a time. The guards are not supposed to work more than 8 hours. Both of the guards on that unit had worked double shifts, 16 hours, right? Because they're short staffed. You're not supposed to work more than 8 hours. They do it anyway. Number 2, the camera was broken. Guess what? All the cameras are broken. That's why people are always having sex in the chapel or underneath the stairs when you go down to the mailroom. The cameras are always broken. Right. If somebody is suicidal or thought to be suicidal, he's supposed to be placed in a room with windows on 4 sides. And you have volunteer prisoners just sitting there in a chair like this, staring at him, 4-hour shifts, 24 hours a day to make sure that he doesn't kill himself. And he's not given sheets. His sheets are made of paper, so he can't tie a knot and hang himself. Every step of of the way, there was a breakdown.
Okay, the question I have, do you think that's intentional breakdown?
Probably.
Probably. Now let's talk about his mindset. Epstein, this is a guy who, I mean, obviously he knows what he got himself into. He's not stupid. He was in jail before, as I understand, and they freed him. So he's dealing with some serious people out there, some very heavyweights. Let's say he wanted to kill himself. It's obviously not because he's sad about what he did. It's obviously because he knows that he's a walking information hazard. First of all, do you think a psychopath like him or sociopath like him, you gotta be, would even attempt that?
Oh, yeah. And I think, especially for a sociopath, it would be a rather easy decision. Yeah, it would be devoid of emotion. He would consider just the practicalities. He was, 60 years old? Almost 60 years old. He's looking at probably second offense, probably 25, 27 years. Pedophiles are not eligible to go to minimum security work camps. He's going to be in prison for the rest of his days.
Right.
And so it's better to be dead.
I don't know unless I look at certain videos or evidence, and so far they produced absolutely nothing. That's the question mark for me. Okay, he killed himself. Great, show us. Show us what you have. What's the deal?
Yeah, what's the big secret? Just lay out the evidence.
Exactly. And everyone
lay
will
out the
shut
evidence
up.
and everybody's going to walk away.
Right. Yeah.
But they won't.
No, and actually, I think MAGA world is just going to walk away because they've had to reconcile a lot of things since Trump took office. They've had the evidence, and they're not going to get the evidence from the Epstein files, but they have the evidence for a lot of stuff. Trump said, "I was going to end the war in Ukraine." That's not going to end anytime soon. That's going to end as a frozen conflict, most likely with a demilitarized zone, reminiscent of the 40th parallel. Sorry, I messed up the parallel, but the North-South Korea divide. That's how that's going to end. Iran, completely beholden to U.S. for Israeli for long-standing foreign policy. Trump is obsessed with BRICS. Iran needs to fall. And also, seems like there might be some leverage on him, at least as far as campaign donations from Israeli actors, Zionist actors. So that's not happening. What else? Oh, Doge was supposed to save a bunch of money. Okay, but now we're doing tax cuts for the ultra wealthy, cutting Medicaid. Oh, yes, we were going to reduce the military budget in half, but now we're expanding it above $1 trillion. I don't know. Sound off in the comments what else I'm missing that he lied about, but I'm sure it's a lot more. Now he's trying to get into trade war with all these BRICS nations and anyone who attended the BRICS summit in Brazil that's taking place right now. It just goes to show you that they'll just lockstep fall in line no matter what. He will always have a devoted base that can mentally, morally reconcile everything he does, because they've experienced, because of the cult of personality, a identity conflation where them and their god Trump are now fused into one person. So if you insult Trump or criticize Trump or question Trump, who presents such a aura of strength, if you're in that mindset, obviously it's not, they also feel like they're under attack and being attacked directly, and they need to show strength too. And the way they've been taught through Trump and their identity conflation with him is that you do ad hominem attacks, you dismiss people, you own the libs. So I'm going to do an episode tomorrow about this on my own platform, but I don't think it's really going to fracture MAGA all that much. You're going to have some bleed off, but I could be wrong, and I hope it's wrong. But there's a whole ideological realignment happening right now across the left-right political spectrum here in America. You have Tucker Carlson, who made his money off race baiting and persecuting the most marginalized people in the country, who's now coming out as an anti-war, America first, patriotic guy who's interviewing President Pezeshkian of Iran. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene's getting on and agreeing with them. And she also says a bunch of horrible stuff too. But the typical ideological lines are shifting. And now what you're seeing is because the Democratic Party refuses to do anything, absolutely refuses to do anything. They are catching a lot of heat from their base. Hakeem Jeffries goes on this weekend this past Friday before Congress closes session and yaps for 9 hours so that they could send me a fundraising text asking me for $5. So that's the state of politics right now. I think most people are getting completely fed up with their institutions. And so where are we going next? And one thing I did want to say about this, also this morning, like my producer wrote this note, another thing to consider in this episode, he writes, there's a kind of triad of cases here that are basically going ignored, hidden, whatever. Depending on the direction of the show, we could tie this into Diddy, P. Diddy, being only guilty of like 3 out of the 9 charges, but not sex trafficking, despite the evidence. Sorry, I keep hitting my camera. And how the bourgeoisie, ruling class elites, can literally get away with anything. And let's not forget, Trump also was charged with all those sexual assault allegations. I forget what specifically happened with that, but wasn't he in jail? Yeah, it was not just like sexual assault allegations. It was like paying hush money to Stormy Daniels, the porn star that he was involved with. And then the obvious connection between Trump and Epstein. Look, it looks like a lot of the glitterati, both on the left, right, celebrity, political, business sector, are like all tied up with these like high profile sex trafficking cases. Just pointing that out, guys. And this has been a long-standing allegation, but one of the main problems is that even if this isn't happening, even if these are all conspiracies, which is a tough sell at this point, but even if they all are, like one of the main messaging problems or information operations problems that we're having right now is that people still believe it's only the Democrats and only the people in Hollywood that are mixed up in these kind of things. That's insane. This is why people on in MAGA world think that they're like closer and more politically and ideological aligned with billionaires and stuff. And it's like, yeah, no, you're not a capitalist, man. You're a consumer in false class consciousness with billionaires who don't have a left-right position. They do whatever they want. Peter Thiel, Alex Carr, Mark Zuckerberg, they all used to be primarily Democratic donors, but they shifted tack to Trump when they thought they could get more out of him. Donald Trump himself was a avowed Democrat. He was a New York liberal for a very long time, but he shifted. He wanted to get more populism, more populist, and break out of the Democratic Party mold, which is fine. But it goes to show you that all these people within all these transnational security and political circles and economic circles, well, they all hang out together. So let's just leave that there. And they all sit on the same boards and they know what's all good for themselves. So now that now I just wanted to point out a couple things. Now that the Epstein list psyop is effectively played out, I mean, this drama is going to go on for a while, but it's going to lose traction. The news cycle is going to roll over and over and over again, and the Trump will still have his base. But it's effectively played out, right? And we can move on to a new narrative about Iranian sleeper cells to justify ICE crackdowns on domestic terrorism. Basically, anyone who disagrees with the administration. If you agree with the administration, you get to lose the designation. So as the war state transitions less abroad, because I do think in some ways he is a less overseas war candidate. And I always believed that. I didn't say he was an anti-war candidate. I've always said that he would increase the war on the American citizens. But yes, here we go. This is fun. You guys a lot of you will enjoy this. Pulling this up. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Technological issues, guys. Stand by. And sorry if you're listening to the audio. You have no idea what's going on, but I'm furiously working to pull up the memo from the State Department from today. And now I'm adding it to stage. Come on, Greg. Figure it out. Here we go. All right. Yes. Now that the Epstein psyop list psyop is played out, we're going to see a focus on domestic terrorism, but conversely, overseas, anyone who will kind of bend to U.S. foreign power and get on board with regional agendas gets this. Department of State, public notice, 12-762. revocation of the foreign terrorist organization designation of the al-Nusra Front, also known as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, in consultation with the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who won't release the Epstein list, and the Secretary of the Treasury, I hereby revoke the designation of al-Nusra Front, also known as Hayat Tahrir al-Shams, and other aliases as a foreign terrorist organization, pursuant to Section 1219, blah, 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 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Okay, so, like, if you're wow. Cool. I wonder if, like, you could be HTS and now come to the country legally under a visa. This determination shall be published in the Federal Register. The revocation goes into effect upon publication. So that's been going on for like a week, 2 weeks now. Just going to show you like a little bit of hypocrisy within the administration. And I don't know if you guys saw that. Someone just said, way to go, narco. I think I have a video, guys, that I screenshotted about what we are doing now on the home front. So, yes, we are wiping the slate clean of avowed war criminals overseas. Meanwhile, and this is all, again, I always like to connect the war state to the police state because it's all connected by the same system, and it's all connected by the same policymakers and oligarchs. So as that's going on, and we're giving forgiveness for war criminals overseas, I get it. There are political reasons, and if you're a cutthroat imperial power, you don't really give a shit. But I don't know if you guys live in LA, but ICE is increasing show of force operations while all of this is going on. And then we're going to turn to Gaza. So from a couple hours ago, basically hundreds of ICE and Customs and Border Patrol officers got in formation and assaulted MacArthur Park in Los Angeles. And this was a massive show of force. They didn't detain anybody. Local activists on the ground got to the park first before they could mobilize and cleared everybody out. So it was a massive photo op that accomplished nothing. And I think it's going to backfire from a PR perspective. Just look at this. Listen to the audio. We have horses in formation. These guys are all complete tactical gear. If you see other footage, there's like dozens of armored personnel carriers. They all have assault rifles. They're walking in formation. There is absolutely no reason to do this. But basically, the point is they're trying to normalize this for the average American. Someone wrote "giddy up." So the whole process is normalization, and I wanted to talk about this because it's normalization in two ways. First of all, to get you seeing it in the streets everywhere. It's just people, guys in full tack gear will now be in neighborhoods around you, perhaps guarding grocery stores. This is the new normal. They're starting in LA. They're doing photo ops, so it gets transmitted across the country. Everybody sees it. So when it comes to you, it won't be such a shock. Another thing they're trying to normalize is these joint federal officers like ICE and Customs Border Patrol, Department of Homeland Security deployments in conjunction with National Guard and Marine support. Right? So they deployed the Marines to help out ICE. Doesn't look like ICE needs a lot of help. Seems like they got a bunch of freaking guys in tack gear. And also to Alligator Alcatraz. So, I saw someone in the comments say they're training for the LA Olympics. Oh boy. Yeah, but yes, this normalization and this fusion of military and paramilitary forces will lead, if history at least rhymes, to the creation of, in the next few years, the future, a completely paramilitary, unaccountable Gestapo, Stasi police force that, can basically wrap up all the potential revolutionaries. So Now, what are the Democrats doing to stop this? They're basically they spent a day talking about the Epstein files and how they demanded accountability for that, but they don't want that coming out neither. So this is really interesting. This article that broke on Axios today, and that was Democrats told to get shot for the anti-Trump resistance. And there's our friend Akeem Jeffries at town halls in their districts and on one-on-one meetings with constituents and activists. Democratic members of Congress are facing a growing thrum of demands to break the rules, fight dirty, and not be afraid to get hurt. Why it matters. House Democrats told Axios they see a growing anger among their base, morphed into a disregard for American institutions, political traditions, and even the rule of law. This is something that the right got correct or started spouting off like 10 years ago under the Obama administration, because you remember their big conspiracy theory? Their big conspiracy theory was what? You guys remember that Obama would put them all in FEMA camps? After Hurricane Katrina, like all the people on the right would be put into FEMA concentration camps. So yeah, they wanted their people to fight dirty, disregard institutions like FEMA, which is our federal disaster relief organizations, and our political traditions, which were no longer serving them, which would actually be used to get weaponized against them and mass incarcerate people who didn't subscribe to the woke ideology. Well, now, because of how the Democrats have responded, people on the quote unquote left, of course, Democrats are not left, they're center right at best, are demanding the same thing. So, quote, this idea that we're going to save every norm and that we're not going to play the Republicans' game, I don't think that's resonating with the voters anymore, said one House Democrat. Oh, you don't say? But, for months, like Democratic lawmakers have fumed that their base demands to, quote, fight harder. And they misunderstand stupid Democratic voters, misunderstand the lack of legislative and investigative power afforded to the minority party in Congress. Right, dude. Right. We've got Representative Brad Schneider, a Democratic from Illinois, says, quote, we've got people who are desperately wanting us to do something. No matter what they say, they want more. Okay, cool. Do more. What we're hearing, the grassroots wants more. Some of them have suggested, this is a quote, that we really need to do is be willing to get shot when visiting ICE facilities or federal agencies, a third House Democrat told Axios. Our base is telling us that what we're doing is not good enough. There needs to be blood to grab the attention of the press and the public, a lawmaker said. And a fourth Democrat said constituents have told them civility isn't working and prepare for violence to fight to protect our democracy. And man, these quotes go along like these Democratic senators and congressmen are not happy about this. Let me see if I can find. Oh yeah, so the cope is really hard. And I wanted to bring this point in because like everything we're seeing now is going to happen because the Democrats will not fight. They won't do anything. And this is why I wanted to highlight this article real quick. Hang on, wait, put it back. Okay. The bottom line. Many lawmakers have said these voters tend to be white, well-educated, and live in upscale suburban neighborhoods. No, they're not. I mean, maybe if they're Democratic Party voters, yeah, but like, no, other people who want the Democratic Party to fight are not white, they're generally educated or live in upscale suburban and urban neighborhoods. Quote, what I've seen is a demand that we get ourselves arrested intentionally or allow ourselves to be victims of violence. And a lot of times that's coming from economically very secure white people. I don't know. I feel like I've been in the streets. I've gotten arrested. I've seen my friends get beat with nightsticks. I've got pepper sprayed like 4 times this past year. I know a lot of people in LA have gotten the business, but that was all under the Biden administration, and they were fine with it then. However, why bring up the fact that these are white people who are very secure? They're your freaking voters. You elected to be officials, and not just get insider trading hints so you can establish generational wealth once you get elected. And their argument is like, not only would this, if they did this, be a gift to Donald Trump, not only would it make the jobs of the Republicans in Congress easier if we are mired in legal troubles. We are a group that is disproportionately people of color, LGBTQ people who do not fare very well in prison. Okay, cool. So your constituents who you're doing nothing for, who generally are these prosecuted minority groups, you just keep doing that and enjoying your position and proximity to power. And the bottom line, y'all, is that they think that these expectations of doing anything aren't just unreal, they're dangerous. And so this is what we say. This is why we say that liberal politicians do not exist to defeat Republicans or do anything in the face of fascism. They cope with fascism. They try to wiggle their way into a little corner of it where they can maintain their privilege and access to political power and money, while the rest of us get screwed. And what they really want to do is block any actual progressive movement from access to political power so that we could actually use the government apparatus to actually fight against fascism. So, okay, yeah, capitalism is the crisis. Sorry, I said crisis, not crisis. Speaking of crisis, there's a lot of them. Okay, so look, before we get into talking about, I do want to spend some time talking about Gaza, but let's just bring this up, okay? Another story breaking out of Texas about immigration and how this crackdown is going to come on us and how the Epstein file is not going to fracture the right, how this is going to be all the news story is this guy. Wait, is this the correct one? No, stand by. Ah, yes, this happened today in my home state. Officer shot and a man with a rifle killed after exchange of fire at Border Patrol facility in Texas. I'm surprised other Border Patrol and ICE agents and other cops haven't been shot yet. We all called it. We all knew it was going to happen. So basically, y'all, a young man, well, now that I'm 35, a 27-year-old is young. A young man with a rifle and tactical gear was killed this morning after exchanging fire with law enforcement officers at a Border Patrol facility in McAllen, Texas, injuring several. The DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, said the man opened fire at the entrance of the U.S. Border Patrol Sector Annex, and Border Patrol agents and local police helped neutralize the shooter. They're still trying to figure out who he is. He was loaded for bear, the chief said, adding that another rifle and other assaultive weapons were found in the suspect's car. The guy's name was, Ryan Luis. Ryan Luis. Okay, yeah. So during the shooting, one officer with the McAllen police was struck by a round. He got hit in the knee. He's going to be fine. Basically, the FBI is now leading an investigation. There's not enough known at this time. Scrolling down, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche mentioned the two incidents on Saturday, because there was also attacks on DHS facilities this past Saturday in Texas, said on X, the Department of Justice has zero tolerance for assaults on federal officers or property. Apropos of nothing, I am not going to endorse any of this, but the people who were hiding Anne Frank were hiding a dangerous criminal and enemy of the state, and therefore they were the enemy of the state. And the people who arrested Anne Frank and the people who are harboring Anne Frank were hero Gestapo patriots defending their country from an existential threat. Just saying. Not endorsing anything, but that's how it went down, and that's how the thinking was at the time. And so that's fun. They're going to use this as a further excuse to crack down, and we can see more violence. And you know that life that your boomer parents told you you're going to get if you just worked hard and go to college and, kept your credit score? which was by probably the biggest grift of all time. Credit scores didn't exist until 1989. Anyways, that's not on topic. But keep your credit score great. You're going to be fine. Kids will be fine. Yeah, it's not fucking happening, y'all. So strap in. It's only going to get worse. So, oh, someone's like, wow, blame the previous generation. How original. Listen, Mima. We are blaming the previous generation because you guys were massive champions of capitalism. And you guys systematically destroyed any social movements that wanted a better, more equitable world. I'm not talking about all of you, but a lot of you. And you know what? It's not even your fault. That's just capitalism, baby. But thanks for chiming in. Yeah. Someone says, Greg actually looks rather worried. I'm not surprised. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a credit score. Good for you. Don't even play into the system. Someone says, I need worse before it gets worse merch. I know that's some great way to cope with it. But yeah, so expect more militarization. Now we're privatizing the prison system. We're going to be privatizing a lot of these ICE operations by deputizing people using bounty hunters and bail bondsmen to wrap up people with like headhunter contracts, like $3,000 a head once you bring in a brown looking person and he turns out to be an illegal person. Yeah. So this is kind of what we're looking at right now. And this is connected, of course, and this is why we all have to, as adults, not just talk about the ICE, not just talk about the carceral system, not just talk about the Epstein files, but like also what's happening with Iran, with Gaza, with BRICS, because we can't afford to be like isolated in one issue anymore. And we just kind of wanted to have a free-form discussion today about how all of these things are connected. Now, seeing that we're building concentration camps in the Americas to house, dirty criminal terrorists, let's go to Haaretz today. Because there was a pretty good article. Here we go. Concentrations here, concentrations in our little colony. What better demonstration of the imperial boomerang? Whatever we allow to happen overseas, we'll do it here. Whatever forms of violence and repression we use on a nuisance community overseas, some indigenous rebels, well, we'll use it on our own people here. So, breaking today, July 7th, Defense Minister says Israel plans to concentrate. I love his word choice. Plans to concentrate all Gaza's population in, quote, humanitarian zone built on Rafah's ruins. This is a freaking horrific headline. Israel Katz says the plan set for a proposed 60-day ceasefire would relocate over 500,000 Palestinians after security checks and bar them from leaving. This contradicts the IDF chief's Sunday claim that population transfer and concentration isn't a goal of the offensive. Okay. Yeah. The IDF also says that 75% of Gaza to be occupied in 2 months. 2 million civilians will be put in 3 different zones, assuming 1 north, south, and central. But I actually don't think the north, because Tony Blair was just connected to Project Gaza 2035 and Trump's Riviera. So they want everybody out of the north so they can develop it. Yeah. And then, of course, there's some backlash. Like there's some think pieces like Israel is marching straight into the trap of seizing Gaza and it'll be an eternal forever war. Where has that happened before? So basically, this is nothing new. This has been something I've been talking about since 2023. This is not the first time they've talked about it. They've always wanted to ghettoize the Palestinian population within inside Gaza and kind of West Bankify it so that they can be controlled, maintained, and completely surveilled. And there's no escape. There wouldn't be any transmission between enclaves while they recolonize and resettle Gaza and completely privatize it. And of course, one of the reasons the GHF was used in the first place is to, again, normalize having U.S. contractors on the ground So for an eventual push to use U.S. contractors, U.S. and Israeli defense companies, which they would take our public tax dollars to do this, wash it out of the public sector into the private, and make a lot of money. And what would be interesting to see is if groups like Geo Group or Civic or like all these different corporations that are building the alligator Alcatrazes and all these ICE detention centers are, or their subsidiaries are involved in these quote unquote humanitarian operations in the Gaza Strip. They always are. You know, Palantir is providing technology algorithms to target quote unquote Hamas members in the most devastating way possible with their gospel AI and the lavender. And then they're also infamous for their predictive policing algorithms, which target, you know, minority and poor neighborhoods here in America. So yes, all connected. Here we go. Guys, if you have any comments, I'm going to start looking at them now. Okay. Someone says, F you and your sensationalism coverage. Keep your eyes on Gaza and West Bank, Free Palestine, and the rest of all imperialists. I don't know why that's so adversarial. I always talk about them. Moving on. Okay. Jadzia, someone told me they're trying to make a billionaires party. And I'm like, don't they have both the Dems and the reps already? Actually, Elon Musk is crashing out trying to make an America party that is supposed to compete with MAGA. I think Elon Musk already lost his battle with the U.S. government. He's the richest man in the world, but he's not. The reason he was the public face of the oligarchs is because he's a freaking joke. He's on freaking ketamine all the time and he's not scary, like Peter Thiel or Alex Karp or Larry Ellison, who have always been in the shadows, who started their entire career using CIA venture capitalism money for Palantir, for Oracle. Like, they've been doing the same thing for decades with discipline because they have a vision they want to achieve. Elon Musk is just crashing out, losing billions of dollars, Tesla stocks tanking. He probably might get voted out by his shareholders. So, I don't think he's going to be part of the cool billionaires party anymore. But yes, both parties serve the interests of capital. And U.S. is a uniparty. They don't live under democracy. They live under capitalism. Yes. But then again, like, I don't want to get too historical. Has democracy ever existed? Like during the Athenian Empire and the Periclean Golden Age, like what, 400 BC? Emphasis on the word empire. Democracy only included white or like Greek landowning men. Women couldn't even leave the house. It was a slave-based society. I mean, the slaves were generally treated better than they were in the transatlantic slave trade, which was like the most brutal manifestation of slavery. But yeah, it was a democracy if you're like a freaking Greek who owns land. So that was cool. That was how our democracy was kind of built up after in a way. Also the Roman Republic. But of course, then you had to be a landowner too. But anyways, okay. These billionaires want nothing but civil war, and I'm sure the Americans will comply. Well, what I think they want more is if you read the Dark Enlightenment literature of Curtis Yarvin, who kind of shaped their thoughts and who Peter Thiel really respects and admires. And of course, Peter Thiel bankrolled the Trump campaign. He co-founded Palantir. He created J.D. Vance as a political operator. They kind of want like these kind of anarcho-capitalist, techno-feudal city-states that they all get to like rule over and then become transhumans and then like go into space and walk in hard vacuum. And it's literally insane. So, I mean, the civil war, they'll be fine. I think Gaza proved liberals will sacrifice the liberty of others for their own safety, whereas leftists will sacrifice their own safety for the liberty of others. Yes, if they're not too busy starting a book club or fighting amongst themselves and like calling anarchists liberals, and then the anarchists call the Marxist Leninists red fascists, and then it all descends into infighting. So let's just kill each other after all this is over, guys. Right? Okay. Let's see what we got. Scott Ritter got on Gigi yesterday, endorsement of it, turned it off. I'm not sure what Scott Ritter endorsed. Of course, him and I have our differences. The word humanitarian would rather die than be involved in such an operation. Yeah, guys. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now. The Gaza ceasefire talks and the Iranian nuclear deal and the attempt to gaslight the American people into this ICE just being about immigrants. It's all part of the same textbook and gameplay, which is to basically put a narrative together, repeat it so many times, and then lie about it, shift the goalposts just to make it to the next yard line, the next play, the next financial quarter. So Gaza ceasefire talks are basically political cover for the Trump administration, giving Israel time to construct these humanitarian safe zones from which they can forcefully emigrate people or just make them completely disappear. The Iranian ceasefire talks are just keeping the negotiations going while the U.S. continues to try to implement regime change or regime collapse operations and assassinate the supreme leader and the president of Iran. The ICE stuff is basically trying to get consent and move the Overton window further and further right all the time so that his support base will kind of accept that it's just about immigrants. And oh no, it's about like also dangerous political activists who were naturalized citizens, but now because they're no longer American anymore, they need to be denaturalized and deported. And then it's going to be for political dissidents, like everybody watching this live stream for the concentration camps. But at least, hey guys, you know your bunkmate's going to be cool. So that's fun, at least. Yeah. I kind of wish I could end on like a positive note. Let me say this. I don't think it's going to work. I don't know how it's not, but like they're really rushing and they're kind of flying by the seat of their pants. And when we talk about the Iran stuff and the Israel, Palestine stuff, and even the ICE stuff, these policies and these political stunts and gambits are being done by the same cabal of old ass boomers who told us we'd be in and out of the Iraq war and that Afghanistan was going to be a victory and that all these things were great and all these adventures that didn't work out, they failed, but they did accomplish their goal, which was to make money. America doesn't fight wars to win them. It fights wars because it's the most avowed capitalist entity that's ever existed, and it makes money. So that's what we're looking for. Now, that being said, they've never been able to achieve their stated strategic goals. So when Trump says, hey, we're going to deport all these illegal aliens, no, you're not. Hey, we're going to depopulate the Gaza Strip and annex the West Bank. When have you ever achieved your goals? You're going to implement regime change in Iran. Okay. I would be more bleak about the prospects of any of this worked ever, which it hasn't. So, guys, we're going to be doing a Thursday episode, probably on like the BRICS summit and what that means globally. And there's a lot of stuff to talk about today. I just kind of wanted to jump around and hit all these different subjects and kind of in a more colloquial, informal way, just kind of ruminate on how these things are all connected. I know some people, like 100 people have just joined, like when in the past 3 minutes. I'm sorry, y'all. We're at the end of our time. I wish I could keep going, but I've got Spanish lessons later. in like 30 minutes and I haven't done any of my homework. So you should definitely rewind to the beginning, get caught up. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. We are on Patreon here at Mint Press News if you're picking up what we're putting down. And if you don't have any cash or don't want to get nickeled and dimed by a bunch of channels that you do like, share, subscribe, maybe drop a comment. This pushes out in the algorithm, and we're just glad you're here. So this has been the Epstein files are done as a psyop. They're going to move on to something else, or just not really have psyops anymore. Just be like, you should shut up, or you're going to the camps. So we'll see. But we're not in this alone, and we're all in this together. And people will get more politically active, and the political landscape, even within the next year, will change in ways we can't even foresee. So don't lose faith. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Hopefully we live to see it. But as the good Captain John Brown once said, I cannot remember a night so dark as to hinder the coming of day. So see you Thursday. Cheers, y'all. Have a good night.